Hey guys, it is Michelle and I am here with a Kindle book haul. Since my last book haul, I have downloaded 23 books to my Kindle. There are three primary reasons for that. One is the Book Riot 2015 Read Harder Challenge. I downloaded some books to fulfill the categories in that. Another is watching all of the wonderful favorite books, top books of 2014 by you wonderful booktubers, and was inspired to add some books there. And some of these have been on my wish list and the price was right. So let's start off with books that I downloaded that were inspired by you guys, booktubers, that I watched your 2014 videos. The first book on the list is Kick by John L. Monk, and this follows a man who, I believe he is already dead, and he has to inhabit other people's bodies and keep them from harming others. It's one of the rules to get to keep inhabiting bodies and doing the things that he likes to do, but someone changes the rules. This is on my list because of a video I watched from P.T. Hilton, and it was on his top books of 2014 version. Next is The Silent Deal by Levi Stack, and someone in their video, I'm sorry, I don't remember who, was getting to advance read the second book and mentioned the first book, and when I read the synopsis and liked it, looked on Amazon and the Kindle version was free, so I went ahead and snagged it. It's about two peasants from a town, and when they start investigating the town's history, they catch the attention of someone they didn't want to catch the attention of, and so there's a huge adventure involving gambling dens and all kinds of things. So it sounds like quite the adventure. Next was The Bees by Lailene Paul, and I actually already devoured that book in December, and it's part of my December 2014 wrap-up if you want to hear what I thought about that book. But it was fascinating, and the main characters are bees in a bee colony, and it is based on a lot of actual scientific information about how bees actually live, and it was very unique and refreshing for a read. Next on my list is Bird Box, which is supposed to be scary, and I hope that it is, because the last book that I was supposed to read that was supposed to be scary, the only thing that scared me was the insta-love. So I'm hoping this one is more scary. It is by Josh Mailerman, and apparently there is something outside, and if you look at it, you kind of go crazy and kill everyone around you and then yourself, and no one really knows what not to look at, so sounds like it could be a serious psychological thriller. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Next on the list is Rippler by Sydney Swanson. This is the first in a trilogy, and this was mentioned by Sue Morrow over at Sue's Book Nook, and she has read two series by this author. This is the beginning of one of them, and this first book was also free on the Kindle as a download. The next section of books I'm going to talk about are books I downloaded for the 2015 Book Riot Read Harder Challenge. First is a collection of poetry by Robert Zimmerman. It is called From Where I Stand. I have finished that already this year, and so it will be part of my January wrap-up, kind of my first foray into poetry. Next is We Need New Names by No Violet Bulawayo. It dropped to a great price after I put it on my TBR because of the challenge, and it satisfies a book written by an author from Africa, and it is about a young lady who immigrates to the United States from Africa and kind of the struggle there. Next is Oliver Twist, and it fit the category of a novel written before 1850, and of course this is by Charles Dickens and is about an orphan boy who is kind of taken under the wing of some robbers and thieves and some unsavory types in, I believe, London. Next is Say What You Will by Cami McGovern, and this satisfied the category of YA novel. I already had this one on my TBR and had snagged it at a cheap price, so I plugged it in there. It follows a young lady who has some kind of physical disability and needs an aide at school, and the aide she has chosen is a young man in her class who has OCD, and so they're kind of like two misfits together. I'm hoping there's a love story. Not quite sure. We'll keep you posted, but this one's been on my TBR for quite some time. And the last book I downloaded for the Read Harder Challenge is a collection of short stories I have already started it. It is fabulous. It is by David Eagleman, and it is called Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. And he has imagined 40 different ways that the afterlife could be. And it is just fascinating. It doesn't go into religion at all, really, which I was very glad of. And it is just some serious brain candy with some very unique ideas, at least to me. And I'm loving it, reading one story a day. I believe I started January 1st on that. All right. And the end of the list contains a whole lot of books that the price was right, because not only physical books went on sale around the holidays, but also ebooks. The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. I downloaded at a great price. Harry August lives the same life over and over, apparently 15 times. On the 11th time, something different happens just as he's about to die, and he kind of gets a clue as to what's going on, and he can finally start to change what is happening, because the life is the same every single time, regardless of what he does. So, sounds kind of intriguing, and I am going to be buddy reading that one in February. Next was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, and this is set in Iceland. I can't remember which century, but it's not very recently, the setting. And it's about a woman who has been condemned to death, and she's sent to stay with a family for the few weeks before the sentence is carried out. And of course, they can't help but get to know her and find out that maybe there was more to this story than what everyone knew already. So, sounds fascinating. Next, also a cold setting for a story. That is The Curiosity by Stephen P. Kiernan. And this one I just couldn't get out of my head, even though it doesn't have the greatest of reviews. It's about a body that is found buried in the ice, and somehow they're able to recover the body and revive the body. And so there's supposed to be some romance involved and a lot of controversy as far as should he have been revived and what does this mean for humanity and that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll be pretty good. Next is a very curious book called The Universe vs. Alex Woods. The author is Gavin Extens, and it just sounds kind of quirky. Alex Woods is a young man. His mother is a fortune teller. He was hit by a meteor when he was young, and that has left him looking different from other people. He just has a very unique life. He's kind of bullied and picked on. He meets Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Peterson is an old man who teaches Alex that you only get one chance at life. And so later, when he's 17, Alex is caught at customs with some marijuana and an urn full of ashes, and so he's pretty sure he's doing things right. So it sounds fascinating to me, and I'm looking forward to getting into that one. Next is Meant to Be by Lauren Morrill, and this is a YA romance, and it sounds pretty typical, but for some reason it made it to my TBR and dropped to a great price, so I'm going to give it a shot. And it is good girl being influenced by bad boy. Apparently she's getting text messages from some stranger, and although she plans to kind of live her life out with one of the good boys, one of the bad boys decides to help her figure out who's sending these texts, and as long as she'll kind of let loose and do a few things. So sounds like it could be cute. Also dropping to a great price was Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, and this is a collection of short stories about a person who is an interpreter for, I believe, a doctor, and gets kind of intertwined with one of the clients, kind of falsely representing themselves, but starts to fall in love. So it sounds like that could be interesting. Of course, gotten great reviews. The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman is next. I've only ever read one Neil Gaiman, and it was a children's book called Fortunately the Milk that came out last year, but I did enjoy it. I've been wanting to try out some of his works, and this one seems like a kind of good second book. I know it's supposed to be darker, dealing with a person who revisits their childhood home and discovers that what they interpreted as their childhood as something safe and okay might have been something a little more sinister than that, or something like that. Next is The Physician by Noah Gordon, and this is the first in a series, I believe a trilogy, about I believe it's set in the 13th century, and there's a person who wants to be a real physician because back then medicine was very iffy, to say the least, and the best school to go to for medicine it only accepts Jews and Muslims, and this person is Christian, so they're posing as a Jew to be able to attend the school, and it's supposed to kind of be a good picture of how the three religions sort of interacted back in the day. So who knows? Looking forward to getting into that one, although that's a long one, and I might take some time before I actually pick that one up, but the price was right. Next is another kind of epic trilogy called Fall of Giants by Ken Follett, and this is the first in the Century trilogy, might be the name of it. I believe it follows one family through a trilogy. I believe the first book starts in like 1920 up until World War II or something like that. I'm not real sure, but I have seen it over and over, and I have wanted to pick it up. The price, again, was right. Next, I picked up a serious classic by Kurt Vonnegut. That is Slaughterhouse V, and has something to do with alien abductions, but also a retelling of a life in kind of not chronological order, but focusing on prisoner of war. I'm not sure what's going on here, but interested in giving Kurt Vonnegut a try. For some reason, he is quite the hype on BookTube lately. Next is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. And I'd kind of talked myself out of this book, but then I saw Reagan's review at Peruse Project and decided to go ahead and give it a shot anyway when it was cheap. Next was Chewing Gum by Mansour Bushnaf, and this one actually was not very cheap. The reason I bought this one was for the Christmas Booktubeathon. So I've already read this, and if you want to hear about it and what I thought, that is included in my December 2014 reading wrap-up. And last on the list, this one also was cheap, but the reason I picked it up was not the price. It was because of the Goodreads Choice Awards, Reader's Choice Awards. In the fantasy section, I just knew that Brandon Sanderson's Words of Radiance, there's no way it would not win. And so I was floored when the Book of Life won. Book of Life is the third book in the series that starts with Discovery of Witches. And so at first I was angry, and then that kind of turned into curiosity. And so I'm like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So now I want to check out this first book and see how in the world any book could possibly have beaten Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.